Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Well, today I'm going to talk about Alien from 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, written by Dan O'Bannon, starring Sigourney Weaver. This is an important film that launched a franchise of movies and video games and upcoming TV show. So this is an important film, one of the most important films of the decade, no doubt about it. And I believe Dan O'Bannon said, I read, where he was asked what inspired him with Alien, and he said everything. I stole from everything, to, all the science fiction movies of the 50s and 60s find their way into this story, which many call a haunted house story in space, is one way to think about it, but it's also a throwback to the 1950s science fiction films as well. Only it's modernized. I think it goes to psychological levels that those films from the 50s, like The Thing from Another World, Forbidden Planet, never quite got to. So it's a classic in that regard as well. So we just have the crew of the Nostromo. We're deep into the future, 100, 200 years in the future, not sure. And this is a mining ship that mines ore from other asteroids, planets, or whatever, brings it back to Earth, working for a major corporation. And we have a crew of 7 people. The cast of this film is one of the most iconic. I mentioned Sigourney Weaver. This was a star-making role for her, but also Tom Skerritt as the commander of the ship, and we have John Hurt as Kane. We have Yaphet Kotto as Parker. We have Harry Dean Stanton, great character actor, in here as well. Veronica Cartwright, who had been in Invasion of the Body Snatchers just the year before. And just a really impressive cast all down the line with the film, and each actor brought so much to their character, which is so important. And of course, Ian Holm as Ash, who's revealed to be the android, of course, in the story. So I talked about Dark Star earlier on an earlier video, which was written by Dan O'Bannon with John Carpenter, and in that film, the whole idea of workers in space who are bored, not sure what they're doing there. I mentioned Dark Star is almost like an early draft of Alien, and if you watch those films back to back, you can definitely see the connections between the two. Many refer to Aliens as a space truckers movie, where this is not like Star Trek, where you have a bunch of idealistic Starfleet officers out there exploring the cosmos for the wonder of everything. This is about people who have to deliver a product for their corporation. There's a whole thing in the script about shares, about, in particular, the Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto character are upset about the pay that they're receiving. There's like this pecking order on the ship. But even the commander, played by Tom Skerritt, who seems reasonable, is basically himself admits that he has to do whatever the corporation says, or the company, as they say, has to do whatever they say, and there's really, his hands are tied. So it's a really grim view of the future, where it just becomes this extension of capitalism and profit and all that. So that's interesting, but not to get too deep into the plot, but of course we start the film, great beginning, where we have the Jerry Goldsmith score, just a really mysterious, kind of creepy score at times throughout this film. The movie starts out where the camera is panning through the ship, allowing us to get to know the Nostromo a little bit, and then we learn that the crew has been in hyperspace for their return to Earth. And then everybody is, the computer wakes everybody up, Mother, as the computer's known. And they quickly discover that they're not on Earth yet. They're actually arrived near a planet that the company wants them to go explore, to check out. So there's a lot of griping and complaining, but they're like, well, this is what we have to do. And of course, they land on the planet, and they go out and explore and discover a very strange species, which they the Kane, the John Hurt character, finds a bunch of eggs and gets the first instance of the face hugger, and basically this alien has attached itself to his head, and he's unconscious, and of course he's taken back to the ship against Ripley's orders, who she is, I believe, the second officer, and she tells them you can't bring him aboard the ship, but they do anyway, which leads to the demise of everybody on board. They're all leading to that scene where Kane appears to be okay, and they're eating dinner, and of course we have the chestburster scene where he is very memorable scene. A lot of mystique around that sequence. Rumors that the cast didn't know how exactly it was going to happen, but you get different stories about that, like were their reactions real, or is that part of the legend of the movie. And of course, once after that scene, then they have to deal with this very dangerous alien on board the ship with acid for blood, and is killing people. And we learn that what it does to people is very terrifying. Basically, it will take people and use them as basically parasites, so more eggs can grow. So it's a really kind of twisted life cycle of the xenomorph, of the creature. And then it becomes like a slasher movie where each character meets their demise, of course, except for Ripley, who will be the sole survivor of the film. Ridley Scott's direction is so atmospheric throughout the film. I mean, there's just that bluish, grayish sheen. It's a sweaty movie where there's so much fluids and sweat in this movie, whether it's the slime of the alien, or the acid from the alien, or people sweating, or people there's a lot of body horror. Well, it is one of the great body horror movies, and just all the emphasis on that type of thing, and and it's a really slow burn movie too. And how that sense of dread is gradually built up as we go through the story, but just how claustrophobic everything is on board the ship, where we feel like we're trapped aboard the Nostromo with this alien on board. There's of course also a lot of sexual symbolism in the film, with the nature, the way the creature attacks people, and even with the dynamics among the crew. There's a lot on gender and even on race in this movie as well, which is really interesting. Of course, the big reveal that there's an android on board who's a villain, is actually working for the company, is also a great twist that comes in the story. We also have the cat Jonesy, Jonesy has this quirky but also ominous presence throughout the film. It's almost like sometimes Jonesy is like a sign of danger whenever the cat shows up, or maybe not. Maybe the cat is the hero of the film in some ways, but effective use of the cat, no doubt about it. Of course, the design of the xenomorph creature by H.R. Geiger, very famous design of the creature and all that. So it's just all these elements really came together with this movie. And I know some of the actors like Harry Dean Stanton or Yaphet Kotto, and not typically we see in science fiction movies, and typically they would avoid these types of movies, but I think all just the excellence of the cast here really sold it and really made it work. I mean, there's been so many rip-offs of Alien through the years that just don't work the way this film works. And it's just like I said, it's just the atmosphere. The editing of the film is very fine-tuned. The way it's almost like sometimes the camera cuts away almost a little too soon, but it works. It kind of builds up a tension just the way the film is cut. So you could really just do a frame by frame study of this of it and how it was cut together and how suspense was used and everything like that. You know, it's all well done in the film. So it's yeah. Alien, of course, it's left a huge legacy behind it. Of course, there would be three sequels to this film, and then plus Ridley Scott would later go back and make some prequels to this film. So the franchise has just continued to grow and explode and things like that, where sometimes just how important the first movie is can kind of get lost when a series becomes a franchise. And one of the best ways of thinking about the first four Alien movies anyway, I heard a critic describe them this way. If you think of them as music, an Alien is very much like a prog rock. If you put on a prog rock album like whatever, Pink Floyd or any prog rock band, and set it to this movie, the two almost are in sync with each other. And I think Aliens is more heavy metal, and the third film is the more of a David Fincher's film, is more of like a grunge type version of the story, and then the fourth film was like a techno music. So I love that analogy of thinking about these movies and things like that. I should mention as well, having a female protagonist in a science fiction movie was pretty rare in the 1970s. You know, there's just not too many of them, and the film deserves accolades for that as well, as Sigourney Weaver creates one of the most iconic characters in all of science fiction, Ripley, as we follow her through the sequels and her character's arc. So that the film is noteworthy for that reason, and just how it was playing on so many of the tropes of science fiction before it, but adding to the tropes and exploring them a bit further, taking them a bit further, and really getting deeper into those things. And it seems like this film is really like a almost like a guidepost of how to reinvent a genre, how to keep pushing a genre forward, and I think this film can also be studied in that regard as well. So yeah, I mean, it's just you know, it's rewatchable. It's very rewatchable. You can come back and watch this movie anytime, and you'll always, like with any great movie, you'll catch things you hadn't seen before and things like that. So yeah, so this is me signing off. Those are my thoughts on Alien. Thanks for watching.